Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We do have a quorum of the Transit Commission, so we will get the meeting started. Welcome to the meeting of the 20th of September. This is our 24th agenda for this term of council. Unfortunately, our typical employee recognition is going to be postponed until the next meeting because of absences, and so we'll do that in October. So the first item on the agenda is declarations of interest. Seeing none. Confirmation of the minutes 23 from Wednesday, 21 June 17. Carried. Thank you very much. Item number 1 is the status update Transit Commission's motions and inquiries for the period ending 13 September 2017. That the Transit Commission received this report for information. Received? Thank you very much. Item number 2 is the 2017 operating and capital budgets Q2 Transit Commission status report. The recommendation is that the Transit Commission receive this report for information. Just a question. Okay, yeah, there's nothing really else to come back to, so by all means, go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a couple of questions on this item, the Q2 operating and capital budget. I noticed on page 3, just looking at sort of the surplus and deficit situation, I guess my first question was, are those numbers Q2 only, or are they Q1 and Q2, sort of the status at the end of Q2?
End of Q2.
End of Q2. Okay. So in terms of the shortfalls on revenue, which were $6,215,000, the report says the projected revenue shortfalls are a result of customers' fare choices and changes in ridership. I know you've explained this a little bit in the past, but if you could just, if staff could just outline a little bit, is this a consequence of people not buying monthly passes now that we don't have, or that we've merged, we don't have the cash fare anymore? I'm just kind of wondering what that means in terms of what sort of choices are being made that has ended up lowering revenue expectations.
It's a mix on revenue, a bit on ridership, a bit on things such as lower UPass sales, fare choices, which Pat has explained in the past, and I can get him to do that again. And then we also have a little bit, and I think the area where we should be more concerned about in the next quarterly report is insurance claims, as you saw in the media. I think that's going to be the one that's going to get us either into a worse situation or even a bit of a deficit at the end of the year.
Okay, so could you just remind, I mean, for my sake, can you explain again what those fare choices are that have led to lower?
Certainly, Mr. Chair. Every day, customers are making a choice of whether they pay their fare with cash, with a pass, with a Presto card, whether they themselves are eligible for a student discount, a senior discount, or whether they need to pay full adult fare. Every day that changes, every month that changes, and every year that changes. When the proportion of people who are making different choices changes from one year to the next, we can see a change in the relationship between ridership and revenue. The average fare, the average number of cents that we get from each customer can go up if there's more adult fares being purchased or more single fares being purchased, and can go down if there's more senior fares, more equi fares, more UPass fares being purchased, and it goes up and down. We can only count as we look at the buses, we can only see how many people are getting on the bus. We don't know until we look at the fare they've paid what discount they're eligible for.
Okay, great, thank you.
Mr. Chair, if I could just add to that, I want to be candid on the ridership piece, because there is a bit of a lull on ridership, certainly in the first quarter, and there's a bunch of things that we think are influencing that, and we're just watching it carefully because we do touch on it in here in terms of the revenue piece. So we're watching ridership month to month, and I think looking at some of the data that Pat has pulled together, I think the detours are exhausting people a little bit right now. Some of that toll may have reached its peak, On the upside, we've looked at the cycling data. Cycling trips are up. We're trying to get some pedestrian counts and things like that. So just wanted to touch on that because I think that's something that we have to closely monitor. And then, as I said earlier on, the insurance piece is troubling me in terms of where it's going to take the budget. So we don't have a spending issue because the team's done a phenomenal job of keeping all that in check, as you've seen in the report.
So do we know what our ridership numbers are for the first 6 months of 2017?
Yes, we do. For the first 6 months of 2017, we carried 48 million customers.
48. Okay, thank you. And then, so when we look out at the 2017 forecast, so the right-hand side of that chart, the expectation is that the shortfall in revenue will be 8.5, which is a relatively smaller addition. If we were at 6.2 after Q2, and we're anticipating being 8.5 at the end of the year, that means that the expectation is the situation is going to improve from what was expected. Otherwise, if you did it in the pure math, it would be a $12 million deficit. If you just took the numbers from the first 2 quarters and you assume that those patterns would continue for the rest of the year. So is it staff's expectation that some of whatever occurred in the first half of 2017 is going to better itself, or why is it that you're not anticipating a more significant revenue shortfall given the patterns from the first 2 quarters?
So some of that improved, like the ridership piece. Certainly the numbers were down early on in the year, and they've gotten better. And that's the best estimate we have now, working with our finance partners, including the treasurer, in terms of what we think the forecast is right now, based on what we know. But things will change. And this report was, I think it was literally published or signed off, and then the next day I got a notice from Mr. O'Connor that we had another settlement claim on the double-decker accident. So these numbers will change, and they may go up, they may go down. I don't have that crystal ball right now.
Okay, thank you.
Very much. Just before we go to the next speaker, I should have introduced our new Transit Commissioner at the beginning of the meeting. I apologize. Todd Matilda Hardman is joining the Transit Commission, replacing Commissioner Burt. So welcome to the Commission, and we look forward to the next year and a half, I guess, give or take. And please don't hesitate to ask as many questions as you like. Councillor Leeper.
Thank you, Chair. Just to follow up on the questions that Councillor Nussbaum or Member Nussbaum was asking, 48 million riders in Q1 and 2. How does that compare year over year to the previous 2 quarters? Just trying to get an idea of the magnitude or ballpark of reduction in ridership.
In the first 2 quarters of 2016, we had carried 49.5 million customers.
And then I'm also interested, just on the spur of the moment, John mentioned the cycling numbers are up. How much, if you were to use an intuitive guess, how much of that reduction of 1.5 million passengers might be attributable to people choosing cycling instead? Or I can certainly wait for more analysis on that. And
yeah, that's a tough, excellent question. We don't know that, and that's for all modes: the cycling, the walking, Uber, all those things that are in play.
Is
and
that
time of day also?
When do we get our best insight into what's going on there? Is that the Trans Destination Origin Study?
Correct.
Can you remind me when that is being redone?
I'd have to ask Vivi and get back to you.
Okay. I'd be very interested in seeing what's going on now, especially as we go into the Transportation Master Plan for the next term of council. Second question, the software support costs. Can you give me an idea of what our path is to keeping those under control? If I understand properly, this is associated with legacy systems that are costing us more to support. When will we stop seeing this as an item in these reports?
As we move the operational support systems from the legacy systems to the vendor-supported systems, which we are continuing to do, we'll have more certainty from one year to the next on what the support costs will be, because they'll be contracted.
Yep.
There is still a question of how much of it is charged to operating, how much of it is charged to capital while these things are in development.
Yep.
And that results in some of the gaps you see here funded back from the reserve by the end of the year.
So back to my question is, do you have a timeline for that?
I don't have a timeline for when we will change that to be reflected in the operating budget.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thanks very much. Just before we go to the next members of the commission, do we have any data on the ridership broken down either by region or time of day, so that we have a sense of where it is these changes are demonstrating themselves? Because I'm still getting concerns about full buses during rush hour, certainly out in Orleans, so I'm wondering.
We do have some data, Mr. Chair. I'm just pulling up some notes here. The passenger count data that we've seen so these aren't the same numbers. They aren't from the same source. The global number is taken from, is estimated from the revenue that we receive, which is how much money did we receive through Presto or through money put into the fare box. The passenger count data that we take on board the buses has shown that when you look at each bus, ridership's been fairly steady during rush hours, but we've seen lower ridership on individual buses in the evening and later at night.
And do we know when around this trend started, give or take?
It appears to have started after last summer, so about a year ago right now.
A year ago, right around when we started allowing Uber, give or take.
I guess I don't remember the
Fair
date.
enough. Commissioner Crew, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just one further clarification on for the General Manager on a follow-up to Councillor Nussbaum's question. I may have misheard, but did you say that one of the reasons for the decreased revenues was lower UPass sales? Did I hear that?
A small percentage of that. Yeah, Pat can explain that.
We sold to one of the post-secondary universities. We sold fewer UPasses last school year than we had in preceding years. We don't know the reason for that. It could be that the people who make up their enrollment, more of them lived in Gatineau or outside Ottawa than inside Ottawa. We don't know the reason for it, but they did. One of those organizations did purchase fewer UPasses from us than they had the year before.
That's it's interesting to hear, given that I know their enrollments are generally going up a little bit. So it would be interesting to see what's behind that factor, if more people are eligible to opt out. With respect to the impact of cycling, I suggest the ridership numbers may continue to be down this month, simply because we finally had summer weather. So thank you, Mr. Chair. That's all.
Thanks very much, Commissioner Crew. Commissioner Mallow.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and colleagues. I think it's important to remember that we were expecting a decrease in ridership. We saw it coming. We knew about it, especially when we introduced the fare rationalization. And compounding the problem is the construction, the delays associated with the LRT. So the reduction was expected. It was a risk that we were willing to manage. My question is whether or not the scope that we're seeing right now in that reduction in loss of ridership is what you were expecting. Are you surprised at all, or not?
I'll let Mr. Scrimgeour elaborate, but I do want to touch on one point. I'd be very careful correlating our ridership to the elimination of the express fare point, because the data that Pat is mining out doesn't suggest that is the factor. So I'm just letting you know that. And then I also want to put it all in perspective in terms of the scale of this, the ridership piece. If we're just to take this point in time, we're at 96% of revenue forecasts, and I will say it over and over and over and over again. I think most organizations would be very proud of hitting 96% of their revenue projections, and the sky is not falling. There's if it is cycling and walking and things like that, as a city, that's the mandate. We want to push more people to that and so forth. So I just wanted to put it out there that there's no data to suggest that the express fare elimination is the cause of the ridership piece. And Pat, if you want to say some more other comments, go ahead.
I would just say that there's nothing. It doesn't surprise us. It doesn't. It would be nice if more people chose to use our service, had chosen to use our service this year. But it's really the outcome of a dozen choices in everyone's mind every morning or every month as they decide what to do, whether they're traveling, how are they traveling, when are they traveling. And we try to neither celebrate when ridership goes up unexpectedly, nor get excessively worried when ridership goes down unexpectedly. It's customers' choice. What we can do, and what we are certainly engaged in now, is building the best transit system that we can, following the directions given by the Commission and Council to build and operate the best service we can that will be the most attractive to people as they make that choice every morning. But we can't control, or in some cases, predict how each person is going to make that choice.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's good.
Thank you, Commissioner Mallow. Councillor Kakish.
Thank you, Chair. One of the main complaints that I get from residents, and I've shared it with you many times, is the reliability of the bus service, either showing up late or not showing up at all in some cases. And in the past year, how has the reliability of the bus service and what have those trends looked like as a result of all the work that's happening? Do we have any data or information of what the reliability of bus service is across the city over the past year?
Okay. Yes, Mr. Chair. All the construction-related detours that we're going on right now has made our peak period time more challenging, and we're more susceptible to some variability in travel times, and which impacts the reliability factor from our customers. So our most challenging period of time is that PM peak commute between that sweet time between 4:45 and 6 o'clock. But it has made some of our routes a lot of the routes that travel through the downtown cores, made them more challenging and more susceptible to isolated incidents having a greater impact. We've had situations where an illegally parked vehicle has created significant delays. So it's made our peak period commutes more challenging, for sure.
And so are we to expect that till next summer, June, July, whenever we do open phase one? Is that still the reliability issues? Are those going to be ongoing for the next few months?
Yes, Mr. Chair. The challenges will continue, and we know that as we get into the winter season and dealing with all the challenges in traffic with regards to when the snow flies, we know that that will pose an additional challenge for us as well.
And what about the introduction? I know you've done a lot of work to improve bus service. For the first time in a decade, we're going to see expanded bus service in some communities. How is that going to play into all of this when you add more buses for capacity and the reliability of that?
The service increases with the new routes will start just at Christmas time this year. So that will shorten up in the walking distance to the nearest bus route for people in growing areas of the city. And in some corridors will provide more capacity as well. But primarily it's oriented at reducing the walking distance in areas that have grown a lot over the last 4 or 5 years.
And what would that do by putting more buses on the transitway, for example? Is the bus going to be more frequent, or is the reliability issue going to be the same, or how do you think that addresses some of the complaints that we get about reliability?
In some corridors, depending where people are traveling to, if there's a new route there, they might have the choice of 2 routes to take them to that point rather than just one. So the effect of variability in departure time or travel time may be less apparent to the person. We don't think that the introduction of these new routes will change the underlying causes of the variability and unreliability in departure times.
Okay. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Kakish. Commissioner Milner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And apologies for being late today, as I'm sure Mr. Manconi can attest to. The roads were miserable this morning. I just wanted to pick up on Mr. Mallow's point, which was that the construction has slowed down and reduced ridership and slowed down our fleet overall. Is there any indication as construction starts to wind up, both the service delivery, that 96% will likely improve, but also, the reverse of that happening, people coming back to the system in anticipation of LRT coming online?
There's nothing definitive that I can give you that that's going to occur, but common sense would suggest that's going to be the case. You're going to have a state-of-the-art LRT that takes you from Blair all the way downtown and Tunney's all the way downtown seamlessly and reliably and so forth, and all those advantages of LRT will come to fruition. I think the issue on the construction piece is, we continually walk in the shoes of our customers, and some of them have had 4, 5, 6 changes. Mm-hmm. Just listen to the chatter on Twitter right now about those students that have to transfer over at Bayview. I think that's the Councillor Leeper will attest. I think that's the 4th or 5th change in terms of their travel pattern, and it's extra walking, and it's adding that piece. Yeah. And success in transit is it's as easy and intuitive as it can be, and that's what you're building. You're building a great system that will be easy to use, intuitive and reliable.
Just my follow-up to that, which is the changes. I know in my neighborhood and Councillor Nussbaum's neighborhood, the number 1 had changed to the 6, and I was anticipating some frustration, but from local residents, and honestly, I heard none. And that second wave of number changes, did we see the same level of just either social media or calls or complaints about the change, or was it more adapted, or did people adapt more easily or quickly to those changes than the first round or the first?
What I've seen and heard is people have been very complimentary about the information campaigns, and so that the route change number, the information's been there. There's nobody that hasn't heard On Track 2018 or Ready for Rail. I mean, some people are begging us to stop. Success is when they beg you to stop, in my mind. The issue is, if your bus stop or your route has changed 6 times over the last 3-4 years, that may get to you a bit.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you for your candid answers. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. And are there any other questions or comments? Well, thank you very much. I think it's important that we keep everything in perspective and how exactly the system has transformed and improved over the last number of years, beginning with the introduction of UPass, which brings the cost for university students and college students now lower than almost when I was in university more than 16 or 17 years ago. We've introduced the Equipass, which brings a much more affordable transit pass for those in our community who are of a lower income status. With the Presto card, we've allowed for the transferability of the pass so that when people buy their bus pass, they have more options and can get more value out of it by handing it off to other members of their family or to their children. As Councillor Kakish mentioned, we've bought new buses which will go in service at the end of this year. The first time additional capacity has been put into the system in a long, long time. And the flexibility of the Presto card also allows people to make more informed decisions and gives them more options on exactly how to spend their money vis-a-vis transit. And that flexibility, my wife is a perfect example. Most months now she doesn't buy a monthly pass. She puts it on her e-purse because there's enough days where she works at home or has days off or stat holidays, etc., that she can manage the flexibility of using e-purse, and that leads us to have a net reduction in our spending on transit. And I would argue that she's probably not alone in that type of decision making. So I think we should be very proud of everything that's happened in the last number of years, and all of that has happened in the context of feathering the needle through the middle of the downtown as we shut down a good chunk of our network to build the future of our public transit system. And I think I would hope that we all keep that in mind as we move forward over the next number of months and prepare for the launching of the Confederation line next summer. So the recommendation is that the Transit Commission receive this report for information? Receive? Receive. Thank you very much. There are no in-camera items. There was an IPD about appointing Mr. Matilda Hartman to the commission. And are there any inquiries? Seeing none. There's no other business. Are we adjourned? Thank you very much.